Welcome to Fright Night.
What do we get from the light of the sun?
A nasty burn, now isn't that fun?
Swim in the ocean, run on the beach,
Drown in the surf and blood like a leech.
we have no time for merrymaking. Chop off the head for badness sake, sever a limb, batter and bake. Nasty spells of bubonic night. Come close and see what's hidden from sight.
It's that time of year. Scares, chills, sweets. Little shitheads ringing our doorbells for said sweets, and me secretly wishing I didn't have to give them any. Because I'm a shithead. But most importantly for me, the world of spooky cinema. Might as well get into the spirit of things and have some fun in my own way, watching horror movies and talking about them. So let's get started. Welcome to my first week of Halloween month, everyone, and of course, Happy October.
Sing on my head, ever offends and makes you scream. I want to die on Halloween. Halloween, Halloween, I want to die on Halloween.
Under the bridge of goblin waits, she never sleeps or hesitates.
Ooh, my anxiety is through the roof right now. I legitimately cannot see. My kingdom for a Xanax. Chucky's back, and this time brought back by his ex-girlfriend Tiffany, played by the impossibly hot Bonnie Swanson. She wanted to get married to Chucky, but he denies her that promise he made her 10 years ago. Shit happens, he kills her, her soul gets transferred into another doll, and the two decide to hitch a ride with a pair of young lovebirds, one of them being a baby Katherine Heigl, and eventually decide to use their bodies to transfer into. And, you know, hijinks, blood, all that good shit.
How you been?
Okay. You?
Peachy.
Ha! This is what I'm talking about. A silly-ass idea finally embracing its silly-ass idea and going right for the jugular. This was so much more enjoyable than the first one. And no, I haven't seen the second or third. This movie knows it's stupid and doesn't give a fuck about what you think. Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif are pure, psychotic, homicidal fireworks in this. And watching them fly off the handle in their own murderous way had me giggling like a tickled toddler. Tiffany is such a great character and has such a great design, and it's no wonder she's become such a staple to the franchise. She's complex, wants to settle down with the stab-happy love of her life, while stabbing people herself. She's a romantic, envies genuine love, but is repulsed by spontaneous love that may seem fake. There's a lot going on with her character, and she's a whole hell of a lot of fun to watch. The acting from the human characters Katherine Heigl and Nick Stabile is kinda bland, but I feel like that was on purpose, as they were the sort of quintessential relationship that Tiffany dreamed of having. Normal. The comedy had me chuckling, the violence was over the top, and never have I ever been sequel baited and excited for said sequel.
Take it from me, honey. Plastic is no substitute for a nice hunk of wood.
As for any negatives, I don't have any. The Chucky movies were never that scary. They were silly. So, finally, the franchise acknowledges that. One thing I did find hilariously timed on a personal level, I had this serious conversation with my coworker and my boss at my day job where it was a curiosity as to why women are so utterly fascinated with the boom of serial killer docuseries. That's what Tiffany represents to me, the modern obsession that women have with said serial killers. There's every reason why Tiffany shouldn't be in love with Chucky, yet she's always pining for him and never questions why. It feels like a damned commentary on that yearning for more, and this was made in 1990 goddamn 8! What a prediction from the most unlikely of places.
Stabbings went out with Bundy and Dahmer. You look like Martha Stewart with that thing.
Who the fuck is Martha Stewart?
My idol.
Brad Dourif said that this was his favorite Chucky movie to film. beaten out only by The Curse of Chucky, which I assume has something to do with his daughter who stars in it. As for this one, I can see why, because it's mine too. I'm all here for the sequel, which I will be watching later on in the month. But for now, this is my favorite horror rom-com. Boy, that is a combination you don't see very often, but I'll take it. My honest rating for Bride of Chucky, a 5 out of 5.
Life sure is full of surprises.
Tell me a story full of betrayal. A headless horseman covered with snails.
Set 3 years after the events of the first film, Charlie Brewster, now in college, has managed to convince himself that vampires never existed and it was all a psychological trip, whereas his friend and partner, Peter Vincent, remembers all too well what happened. However, Charlie's reality is put into question once again when he sees the recurring image of a woman whom he may or may not believe is a vampire.
The unending task of conquering the forces of evil wherever they might appear.
Jesus Christ, these movies. I guess I like this one more than the original, but not by a large margin. It provides the same amount of annoyance that the original provided, but just packaged in a weirdly different way. And that's kind of going to be the theme of my review. Weird. Second verse, same as the first. Charlie was my problem with the original for being a dumbass kid trying to convince everyone that he saw a vampire. Now he's trying to convince himself that he never saw a vampire in the first place. I wouldn't know where to start unpacking that vast amount of bullshit. All of his problems are self-inflicted like last time, and he spends most of the movie being a dingus. But where this one unforgivably drops the ball is the villains. Vampires need to be posh and pretentious, or at the very least, scary. But that's not what we get here. They're boring, especially the head honcho this go-round, who is Regine, the sister to Jerry Dandridge, and this movie does precisely ass with her. There is no rivalry between her and Charlie, no presence that inspires intimidation. And I get it, she's supposed to be influencing his corruption from the shadows. Yeah, that's a big plot point, by the way. Charlie is slowly turning into a vampire, but she's not doing it in a way that's memorable.
Your punishment won't be as severe as Charlie Brewster's. You came reluctantly, didn't you?
I won't pretend that there weren't good things in this. There were, and thank God for it, but very similar to the first movie, they were all in the final act. While the villains are weak as hell, minus the hilarity of seeing Brian Thompson as a bug-eating vampire for no reason, I do enjoy Alex as the romantic interest. It may take her too long for her character to matter, but when she does, she practically saves this movie. I will also admit to a few funny scenes, as kind of dumb as they are. And of course, the climax. This is where the movie is most enjoyable, where the creativity and vampire deaths are gross and fucking awesome. The design of the vampire bat that Regine turns into is actually better than Jerry Dandridge. And the final fight scene is rather satisfying.
That hurts.
If you didn't know that the original had a sequel, you'd be forgiven. Apparently there was a lot of drama going on behind the scenes, like one of the producers got murdered by his own son or some shit. I don't remember the details, but yeah, there was like no marketing behind this. So if you ever want to watch this, good luck finding it in the wild, and if you do, it's probably going to be crazy expensive. To my understanding, it's a collector's item now. So if you want to watch it, you might have to do it on YouTube. That's where I got it. If you're a fan of the original, you might like this one because it's more of the same. As for anyone like me who was hoping for an improvement over the original, it's not. My honest rating for Fright Night Part 2, a 3 out of 5.
Welcome to Fright Night.
Follow the path, the sleepless night. Feels so good to have a bad fright.
Okay, rapid fire. Last year, I learned that John Carpenter's The Thing is actually part of a trilogy. The Apocalypse Trilogy. The Thing is part 1. Fucking awesome movie. If you've never seen it, you are doing yourself a disservice. Part 3 is a movie called In the Mouth of Madness. Not as good as The Thing, but still pretty sweet. And now, I present to you Part 2. A priest ropes in a university professor and a bunch of his most brilliant students to study an unknown object full of green liquid that was found in an abandoned church. Little do they know that the liquid is alive, malevolent, and starts possessing and killing the students around it.
What is it? A secret that can no longer be kept.
It's not my favorite of the Apocalypse trilogy, but still kind of enjoyable, kinda. Look, it gets a bit tropey and unintentionally goofy at times. I understand that Carpenter loves his sci-fi, H.P. Lovecraft influences, but there's something about making the claim that Jesus Christ was an alien trying to warn us about Satan that seems kinda silly. The way certain characters get possessed through their own stupidity, how not enough students are asking questions and threatening to leave if not told the full spectrum of what they're doing, a lot of it seems like stuff is happening so the movie can happen. And maybe I missed something in the dialogue, but as much as I enjoy the idea that the future is sending these people a telepathic message, I don't quite know how this figures into the ecto-cooler from Satan and the many other threads of information that are weaved into this. So it became something of a hassle to keep up with where everything was leading to. Some wacky action scenes, forced moments that think they're scary but are just cheesy, a bit too much of what we get here almost goes for laughs, not chills.
Keep watching her closely. Anything you see, tell us.
I have to go to the bathroom.
I won't pretend there weren't good things here. If there's anything that John Carpenter is good at, it's building up a mystery, keeping you guessing on what's going to happen next, only for you to realize you did not see that coming. The mystery is a lot of fun to see unravel. What exactly the possessed folks are doing and why, there's not exactly a clear answer or rhyme or reason. But you get a sense that something big is about to happen. Even once you know it's about Satan, the later grotesque makeup, the climactic presentation of everything coming to a head, it's enough to keep your eyes glued to the screen. Even though the payoff feels a bit thin, it's not a bad ride while it lasts.
Well, I have been watching them on and off all day, and they don't seem to be making any movements. They just stand there.
There's just enough here to make me think that this was not a complete waste of my time. What worked really worked for me. But as a complete package, this is, at least in my opinion, the weakest of John Carpenter's movies, at least the ones that I've seen, and certainly the weakest of the Apocalypse trilogy. If you didn't know that this existed and you're a fan of John Carpenter, I still might recommend checking it out. You might get more out of it than I did. My honest rating for Prince of Darkness, a 3 out of 5.
It's just like so on the nose.
Horse your step, you'll have a great fall. I know a sight that will make you scream, I want to die on Halloween!
Set 5 years after the events of the first film, Martin Brundle is the offspring of Seth Brundle. In 5 years, he nears full maturity and is a genius. He's raised in the labs where he was born and is assigned by this old white dude to fix Seth Brundle's teleportation pods. But the deeper into the research he gets, the more he realizes how much he's been used, all while he quickly ages.
Before you decide, listen to your father.
I can see a few people hating on this. Is it remotely as good as the original? Oh fuck no. Is it even a good movie? No, not especially. But does it hit some serious high notes? Oh fuck yeah. Let's be real here. If you didn't know this was supposed to be a follow-up to Jeff Goldblum's The Fly, you'd be forgiven, as this movie is more or less a coming-of-age flick about a socially awkward teen boy and wanting a life of his own outside of his laboratory walls. It's a sci-fi flick tailor-made for the young adult era of adaptations long before they were fashionable. Unlike Goldblum, Eric Stoltz as Martin Brundle isn't nearly as charismatic and is simply acting. It's not a bad performance, but it's your typical average young man falls in love with the cute girl type of acting that you can find literally anywhere, even done better on the Hallmark Channel. The plot is utterly predictable. From the moment everything is set up, you can easily figure out how this will end, and takes way too long to get to where you'd want it to go. And why are all these scientists so damn mean to Martin when he's a kid? Jesus Christ, their deaths later on are so well deserved.
Got him. He's right outside base 17. Send reinforcements right now!
If there's anything that I will give this movie credit for, is that it does something that a lot of sequels don't always get right. It feels like an upgrade from the original, at least in some aspects. And for an unnecessary sequel, they really tried something here, and that has to be admired. Despite how cheesy the romance between Martin and Beth is, it's not done poorly and is given ample time to develop. So when the climactic monster murder spree happens, there's a bit of weight to the dramatic elements. Not nearly on the same level as the original, but it works on a fundamental level. If you find this stuff boring, believe me, I get it. I was very forgiving. But where the movie picks up is right about when the budget went straight to the makeup department and Martin begins mutating from a gross-ass person to a damn cool monster fly creature. I don't care who you are, that design was the shit. Not to mention some gnarly-ass deaths, so my inner sociopath is quite giddy, and without giving anything away, the ending is satisfying.
Bastard! Where's your compassion?
I had to give it up. It cost me an arm and a leg.
Keanu Reeves, once upon a time, was offered the main role, but he turned it down. Man, that would have been interesting. Anyway, I don't think this is that bad, to be honest. You get some awesome creature effects, satisfying gore, and some decent body horror. The problem is, you have to wade through a wildly unremarkable young adult romantic drama to get to those good things. I do recommend this, but for the love of God, do not compare this to the original. You will hate it. My honest rating for The Fly 2, a 3 out of 5.
Until now, I've been nothing more than an open wound. Defenseless. Weak.
When we wake, the sky turns red. There is no way to leave this room. Put on a hat and strap on a broom.
The late and great Fred Ward is back as Earl Bassett. Having fallen on hard times, he is approached by a Mexican dude who tells him of a swarm of graboids that have attacked his oil fields and killed his employees in Mexico. Despite his reluctance, he embarks on the journey to help kill them all for a hefty sum of money and is aided by rookie fanboy Grady, and eventually fellow graboid-slaying veteran Burt Gummer. However, they soon learn that the graboids are evolving and all the rules are being thrown out the window.
It's a whole new ball game. A whole new goddamn ball game. Well, you know what to do, right? Right? I don't know shit.
Yeah. I mean, okay. It could have been a whole hell of a lot worse. Let's be frickin' fair here. Especially for something that was released straight to VHS back in the day. But as seems to be the theme of all the movies that I've been watching, at least in terms of sequels to great originals, it doesn't hold a candle to the original, but it has its moments. To have expected anything remotely on the level of the amazing original is a setup for failure. You know how a lot of sequels to iconic horror movies try to explain things that were intended to be a mystery and mostly doesn't work because it ruins the unknown factor? That doesn't fly here, as these subterranean worms just somehow, some way evolve into tiny bipedal monsters that hunt by infrared. I think some explanation is required here. Despite having Fred Ward back, the issue now is that he spends most of his time yelling at everyone to shut up and at Grady to stay off the ground, despite how knowledgeable Grady is supposed to be on the events of the first flick. There's bafflingly unnecessary CGI in some shots where puppets would have worked fine, and it's downright criminal that by the time we get the new graboids, they don't appear until an hour into the damn thing. Seriously? And with only a half hour left in the flick after that, get the fuck out of here.
We killed one on the radio tower and one out there, and
We're on top of the car.
That's it?
Well, I'm sorry.
As I said, it's not all bad. I mean, you don't have Kevin Bacon's charm for everyone to bounce off of, and that does kind of hurt the flick, but it makes up for it in other ways. Fred Ward must have needed a back brace because he carried a lot of this film for a good long time, since a lot of the characters aren't as likable. But as if touched by God, in comes Michael Gross as Bert, and we get some much-needed psycho lovability. Armed to the teeth with an over-the-top amount of firearms and explosives, it's enough to make the gun nuts of the world salivate with adolescent glee. And even though one shouldn't expect non-stop action, which is a shame, you get some satisfying creature violence that makes the pain hurt a little less. While it may not make sense to see the OG graboids turn into the new creatures, the mystery of what they are and what they can do while retaining traits from their predecessors do have their own threat level, and provide an adequate challenge for the characters to figure out how to creatively deal with them. And one hell of a cheer-worthy ending. I don't know if this is going to be a hot take or anything, but I think there's stuff in here worth defending. It's not a complete copy and paste of the original, and it does do its own thing. It does have its own fair share of charm that carries the flick. It's just not the same charm as the original. My honest rating for Tremors 2 Aftershocks, a 3 out of 5.
50 G's, baby! 50 G's! Oh.
There's nothing, and I mean nothing, between us and Bixby, but nothing.
Halloween, 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 bats will fly on Halloween.
Okay, so quick side note before I get into this. I thought this was a prequel to the original flick, not a prequel to the 2003 remake. Does it truly make a difference? I'm not seeing the remake. Set 4 years prior to the events of the remake, two brothers, one of them being Matt Bomer, and their girlfriends, one of them being Jordana Brewster, are traveling to see off the boys as they intend to enlist into the army to go to Vietnam. However, a ton of shit happens. A biker chick causes them to have a car crash, the Full Metal Jacket drill sergeant kills her, and then he brings everyone back to the old homestead for some Leatherface murders. Yep, still not my cup of tea. Although, hot take here, I think I like this more than the original. I'm gonna have to defend that, aren't I? I think what pushes it past the OG for me is the star power. It's easy to see R. Lee Ermey as a sadistic cannibal, seeing as his career is defined by playing unhinged psychos. And he does add a level of delightful gravitas as he beats the shit out of one of the victims in his usual drill sergeant-y way. And of course, Brewster of eventual Fast and Furious fame, and Bomer who would go on to carve a name for himself, this flick is clearly meant to be enjoyed in hindsight, at least in terms of the performances. Even then, the characters themselves are kind of likable and aren't just meat ready for the grinder. You kind of care about some of them as they help each other when they can, fight for, and even die for each other, making their deaths legitimately tragic, which the original didn't have. And I was surprised by the restrained amount of violence. Make no mistake, it gets gory and graphic as one would expect from a movie with Chainsaw Massacre in the title, but I appreciate that there is a balance of simple brutality rather than drowning the audience in blood and guts.
Dude, we got ourselves a regular American hero here, ain't we?
3.
But at the end of the day, what is this movie but yet another violent slasher flick? What does this do to change up the formula? Not a damn thing. It would seem my sentiments are echoed as this isn't an acclaimed outing either by critics or fans. Random biker characters that come and go, and even more than a few deaths are woefully unimaginative or were done better in worse installments, if you can believe that. And with no offense meant to Andrew Bernarski, who was Zangief in the Street Fighter movie, what the fuck? He isn't as memorable as Gunnar Hansen. Leatherface here feels like a lumbering oaf rather than a truly mentally challenged character with a genuine creep factor. And it actually does his intimidation a disservice when it's shown that Leatherface had a job at the local butcher. I mean, that implies he clocked in, was handed a paycheck, went to the bank to deposit it, and got W-2s to pay his taxes. And his name is Thomas. It's oddly hilarious to think about these things. Not much else to do since what you actually see on screen isn't anything more compelling. Honestly, I might have to see the other films just simply for the star power alone. Like, Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger are in one, Viggo Mortensen in another, holy damn! That's probably the only thing these movies have going for them, is the novelty of seeing these actors in their early roles. I'm unimpressed with the movie as a whole, but I like Jordana Brewster and Mike Baumer, so that's it though. My honest rating for The Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, a 3 out of 5.
Bugs dancing on my head, whatever offends makes you scream. I want to die on Halloween.
This teen girl happens upon an old-ass camera that has a deadly entity that kills anyone whose picture is taken.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Riding high on that Blair Butler love, so here I am talking about the one and only feature-length film that she wrote that I haven't seen. And it's not good. Yeah, this time around it's a little hard to defend it against the overwhelming negativity that it received. Now I will defend it in a couple of ways. There are some ideas that I felt like worked, and just some general things that I liked. I like the rules of the pictures taken. You can't destroy it, or else the damage done is mimicked on the person in question. Say if you burn it, the people in the picture will catch fire too. As for the acting, bless her heart, lead actress Catherine Prescott is acting her ass off to make this role work, even if it doesn't quite work out in her favor. And I do enjoy some of the shadows and general CG work on the entity itself. The design is something of a combination between a ghost and a zombie. I don't know, something about it worked for me. Yeah, but that's about the only set of positives that I can muster. Everything else surrounding it is... The biggest question I will always have is, why? Why is this entity killing all these kids? What is it after? What is it gaining? Only its motivations are given, and they have nothing to do with any of its victims. The characters are generic, cookie-cutter teens that we've seen countless times over and over, and are pretty freaking stupid. If light hurts the thing, then why not carry around flashlights or use the damn flashlight app on their phones? There are so many ways many of these characters could have survived, but don't think to do these things. The cliches pile up by the scene, the monster's abilities never truly being defined, a single scene with an old person giving the young people all the answers. Seriously, where did that one start? Everyone separates at the most stupid of moments, and the PG-13 rating does a disservice as there are deaths that could have been satisfyingly gruesome, but are way too neutered. Even the tropey-ass jump scares aren't always well executed. I will never not give Blair Butler's movies a chance. And honestly, that's kind of the only reason you would watch this, if you like Blair Butler from Attack of the Show. Other than that, no, you're not missing out on anything. I am completely biased, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. My honest rating for Polaroid, a weak 3 out of 5.
We have to go now. Now.
Thanks so much for joining me on my first week of Halloween month, guys. I really appreciate it. Stay safe and healthy out there. Hope to see you soon. And once again, happy October.